Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, how are we getting on? Welcome back to a brand new camp build, and today we are down on the edge of the Ash Heap and the Savage Divide, right at the bottom of the map. And this is a spot that I have wandered past on numerous occasions, and occasionally some people build that before as well, so I thought today we'd stop and actually build something here myself. So, let's have a look. Okay, so let's have a little look at where we are first and foremost. Taking a look at the map, we can see right down at the bottom here, just on the edge of the Savage Divide and the Ash Heap, got Garahan Mining Headquarters there and the Garahan Estate, and the Hornerite Estate just there, right by this little road that runs up between those. Spot's a good spot. I've got the camp unit, as you can see there, stuck right in the middle, which just about includes the entire courtyard area here. So it's already surrounded by the house, the garage, and greenhouse as well. So we're going to start off by sort of shoring this place up a little bit. And get some junk fences around this. We've got a few railings, bits and pieces like that sort of mark off the main area. So that gives us an idea where I'm going to build, but they're not going to be particularly effective at keeping the bad guys out, so we're going to reinforce a little. So, as per, going to use the junk fences here, starting off with these thinner ones as opposed to the slightly more complex, chunky ones. So take up a little bit less space. So getting it right up against this garage here is a bit of a problem because of the way the roof hangs over. It's just a little too low there, so I can't get right up against the wall. But I can plug this little gap here with a bit of concrete that fits quite snugly in there. Quite nice, actually. Quite pleased about that. Kind of excessive, really, seeing as this particular corner is not going to be visible at all in the final product. But, you know, like to do things right. So I'll grab another fence. Yeah, I'll do. Mix up those textures a little bit. I'll just push these next to each other. Had originally planned to put these on the outside, but the slope of the ground makes things a bit awkward. You wind up with floating, and it just didn't look particularly good. So we'll tuck them on the inside where the ground's a bit more level. We'll just nudge this one over a little bit. These flatter ones are actually pretty good for sitting very close to each other, so they are quite handy if you want a tighter fit like that. And we'll drop a third one just down here behind the truck. The truck we cannot bulldoze, but we can kind of build on top of it if you wanted to, although you're going to wind up with a floating effect if you do, because the truck bed is not level, and yet the sort of collision box for it is, so not ideal to try and build on. But that should do for now, closing up that back corner. So let's move over towards the house and basically do the same thing on this corner. So I tried a few different bits and pieces here. I put a CD shed in, all manner of things like that. There was a lot of hassle, but in the end I just settled on walling it off and just putting a few bits and pieces in this space. So just here, the ground kind of starts to drop away quite quickly towards the edge of the build area there. So I'm just sort of following the line of the top of it here. So messed around with a few different junk fences, but keeping it simple again seems to be the way to go to make this work. So unfortunately the gap is a slightly awkward size, so we're going to have to kind of reverse this last one to close that gap up in a sec. I did end up pushing these a little bit further out later on, just so I could squeeze some bits and pieces behind them and actually make use of that space, but you could go a little tighter if you didn't really want to use it. But it'll seal up this back area. I've not actually had any attacks on this place yet, so I couldn't tell you where needs to be defended the most. So for now, making sure that this place is reasonably difficult to assail is probably the way to go. So back over towards the roadside, the other side of the garage here. This side gets a lot more awkward to work with. There's a lot more rubble and trees and bushes and all that sort of thing. And the ground is very, very uneven here as well. It's the same around the sort of other side where we're going in a moment. But we've got a little stand on the tree there that makes a good guard post. So I wanted that inside of the fences, but so we can sort of run up there and see over it to cover the approach up that road if I need to. So we're going to nudge this encampment fence over a little bit. I tried all manner of different things here. I tried the regular junk fences, looked at the communist sort of chain link fences, but the only ones that really work with the uneven ground were the encampment ones, so make do with what's available and what functions well. Managed to get a junk fence in there though, looks alright. See on the right there, there's a wood resource. You can actually put an extractor on it if you would like to. In this case I just decided to use it as part of the barricade for the campers. Its position kind of works well with that. So there we go. Close up the gaps here. Going to adjust this fence, make sure it's nice and neat, and the posts line up nice and tidily. So the fact this sinks in a bit and has reasonably long legs on it just makes it a lot easier to work with on the uneven ground. And not too much decoration actually needed on the outside of the walls for this one, just because with all the trees and rubble and stones and everything else, it just kind of has a lot of texture and depth to it anyway. So, plus it'd be very, very awkward to make things not look like they were floating. So, there we go. So, before we do a little bit more of the walls, I want to put a structure of my own just on the side of the greenhouse here. It's a bit awkward to do. You can kind of snap things a little bit through that stone foundation the greenhouse is on, but we're just going to sit nice and snugly up against it there. Unfortunately, there's a couple of spots where we've got these cut down trees. You can see the stump of there. And sometimes you can get floors to snap through them, sometimes they just flat refuse to cooperate. So some fiddling and persuasion is required to get the foundations to snap in there. But now we've got these lined up a little better, a couple there. Fortunately, the ground is rising up at the back here, so that's as far back as we're going to go. One of the reasons I've built this structure as well is because I had thought about putting some workbenches and stuff inside the greenhouse, but with a few exceptions, there's not a lot of room in there and stuff tends to jump up onto the roof. So basically it was better to build my own structure, I felt. So keeping the rustic vibe going, we're going with the basic wooden pieces, as you can quite clearly see. We'll just stick a lean-to roof on it there. Unfortunately, because we are right up against the stone foundation that's already existing there, I can't really put a wall on the right. But I also wanted to go with something a bit scrappier, so we'll have a look at that in just a sec, once I have put a couple of foundations on, so I can get a post in to support this roof. It's this corner of it. So, slightly awkward to do this, because we're just snapping straight onto the end of the line, so we need a half floor and a couple of full-size ones up there. Now we can snap that in on the corner, whip these all out, and the foundation will support it. There we go, standard lean-to. So, as I say, I can't really snap walls onto this side, and closing this side of it is a bit awkward. You don't necessarily need to do it at all, I suppose, but I did want to put something there. So, gone for a junk fence here, because it's, again, a bit rustic and a little bit different. Mixes up the structure a little bit, makes it a bit more interesting to the eye. So we'll nudge this over a little bit so it sits on the edge. This edge where the foundations meet the stone foundation, I suppose, is kind of awkward, because putting anything on there that crosses the line can be a bit awkward. And those boxes seem to have an unusually large collision box on them as well, so getting anything in here is kind of nightmarish. Could snap the small railing on, but it didn't look very good, so we'll clutter it up and make it look full that way instead. So that's that structure done. That's the only major structure that we're going to be putting in. We'll put a little gate and some guard posts on the front here, and close off this side as well, hopefully before the sun goes down. Got some awesome colours in this corner of the map, I have to admit. Some really, really nice sunrises and sunsets are spotted while I was building down here, so very, very pretty area. So going with the tall guard posts, as they do make for the best sort of gate posts and sort of fortifications either side of a gateway, in my opinion. So this rise of the ground there on the right does make things quite awkward. It's a nightmare to get any fences on, but we'll have a look at that in a moment. For now, just sort of roughly marking out where I want the gate. Got the sort of log pile on the left that you can't quite see, it's just out of shot. That is sort of forming the left-hand edge of the barricade, I suppose, the walls there. I actually ended up switching out for that iron fence, which we'll see in the tour, the iron gate. It's one of the new items in the atomic shop, because it's a little different. I haven't used it before, and I didn't want the really raidery vibe of the encampment stuff. A couple of places I had to use them, because they're the most practical tool for the job, but I could mix it up a bit for the gate, so that's what we're going to do. For now, I'll nudge this guard post over just a little bit, just to make sure everything fits quite nicely. I should say, by the way, that technically it'd be quite easy to climb over that log pile on the left, but I don't imagine there'll be a great deal of pathing over it going on the part of any attackers to the camp, so it should do the job quite nicely as part of the defences, and it looks cool. It's something a bit different to incorporate into the walls. So, with the gate in place, I'm just going to tweak the position of that guard post a little bit, and make it sit nice and snugly, and there we go. So coming around to the back behind my lean-to here, I want to close this off a bit so that it doesn't look like anybody can just sneak through on this side. There wasn't a lot of area left to the build area, just behind the greenhouse here, so I haven't really done anything much back here apart from fence it off. I haven't done a great deal to the greenhouse either, apart from board it up with a couple of junk fences, but we'll take a look at those in a bit. For now, I'm using this big junk fence with the tyres, because it blocks this gap up quite nicely, and kind of fits between the greenhouse, the lean-to, and this sort of lump of stone that sticks up here, so a little adjustment to the position required. And then we'll close this last bit up here. We should have more or less a secure little compound. So back to the encampment fences again to work the awkward bit of ground here. There is a bit of a gap here, but we kind of make do. It's obviously nobody's going to be pathing around there. You could theoretically jump around, I suppose, but it works and it looks alright when we're done. Going to nudge this nice and close to the tree. This tree actually will bulldoze, but I don't really want to do that. I want to leave as much of the environment in place as I can to make the place look a little bit more interesting and authentic. We'll nudge this encampment fence over a little bit, tweak it a bit there. That should be nice and close to the edge. So, just a last little bit to close off here. I'm going to go back to good old junk fences for this one. Use the textured one. We'll have to flip this one around, just the edge of this big stone here I'm kind of standing on. You can't really see very clearly for the dark. But there you go, you can see it now. Kind of drops away at the back there, so rather than having those legs just floating on the inside of the camp, spin it around, push it up towards the tree and the other fence a little bit. Change that line a little bit so it'll follow the line of the stone. And there we go. Now we've got one little gap here to fill up, and as there isn't really anything that's the right size for this, we'll improvise a bit. So let's grab a couple of the new iron fences, or one of the new iron fences. Helpfully, this will actually sit underneath those legs on the junk fence, which came as a pleasant surprise to me, to be honest. But that worked quite well. Keep anybody from getting through that gap. There we go. And we'll add a little concrete barrier on there just to make it look a little more substantial. There we go. Once it wants to sit there. Not perfect, it's kind of floating on the left end a bit, but it'll do nicely. So, let's tour. As I say, I didn't do a whole lot more building beyond that for this, but I did do an awfully large amount of decoration, which I had initially thought about showing you guys, but it was a lot of the same stuff, and the video would have been excessively long had I done that, so we'll take a look at the finished product instead. I'm not going to go all the way around the outside, but you see I did a few little bits and pieces to decorate up the walls here. Mostly they kind of blend into the trees and with the lighting in the edge of the Savage Divide here, it looks quite good. A little sign on the corner there, just add a little bit of interest to that side as you come up the road. Swing back around to our front gate. So you see, you could technically jump over that log pile very easily, but obviously nobody will. Might have to worry about the occasional super mutant standing and shooting over it, but should be okay. A few little clusters of bits and pieces by the gate here, just to make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more lived in. We'll pass on inside. Sadly, there is no sound to that gate, which is a bit annoying. There have been a couple of things added recently that have had issues like that, either weird noises or no noises at all, which is a bit disappointing. So there's that last little bit we fenced off. A few crops tucked around, a few bits and pieces to dress up the back of the Nuka-Cola protector on there, collector on rather. Lots of bits and pieces of decoration. Really happy with how that fashion out bonfire came out in the end. Have a little look down here at my gourd plants. Tucked a scarecrow in there, because there's already one scarecrow here, so adding a few more kind of fits the vibe of the place. Nice view down the road from this spot. We'll have a little nighttime tour in a minute as well, because I'm quite happy with how the lighting came out on this. We've got a few rain barrels to collect water there, as there isn't really any around here. There's a little bonfire. I had a big open space there I wanted to do something with. I'm quite happy with how that came out. And our little lean-to is basically a crafting space. It's got most of my crafting benches in here, though we've got a couple of others scattered around a bit as well. A few little bits pieces on the wall, trying to make it sort of consistent with the workbench that's near. And I've added a couple of extra bits to those piles of boxes and stuff just to clutter it up, make it look a little more complete. Nuka-Cola collector is getting stuck there. So, this truck is already here as well as pickup. It's working around, that's quite nice. It won't bulldoze either, so you can put some stuff on top of it, which is quite cool. Very happy with my little cooking station in the middle there. The punch card machine I just dropped there because I needed to use it, and it kind of fits, so I ended up building around it, so I left that one in there. I say, nothing really done in here. Everything is pretty much what is naturally spawning in this greenhouse. It's a nightmare to put anything in. Things jump up onto the roof, that sort of thing. But I did close off the back entrance and put a reverse junk fence against the back wall as well, as there's some big holes in the windows. Got that Halloween-themed vendor there on the side. I was struggling to figure out where to put those. I squeezed a couple of bits down the gap between the house and the greenhouse here. A gas station sign doing the job there to close the gap up. Really happy this workbench squeezed very, very nicely in there. Only just fit, but it did do it. And a few little bits of decoration around there just to make it look a little bit more complete as well. Coming on round, we've got my decontamination arch there. A little awning over the top just to keep the weather off of it. I've actually got, I think, 6 solar panels scattered around the camp here in various places. I've kind of tried to keep the wires out of sight as much as possible so that they kind of blend in with everything else. It provides plenty of power for everything that I need. There we go. Let's see. We've got our little power armor station and symptomatic area here that I've got fenced off with the iron fences again. I did originally have this open, but kind of wanted to enclose it a little bit, and it looked pretty nice when I did, so I'm quite happy with that. Loads of bits and pieces of decoration. Drop the Brotherhood of Steel statue and a few other Brotherhood bits and pieces around there. There's a kind of Brotherhood War Memorial type vibe in the corner here. Initially, this corner of the fences, which actually snapped together quite nicely, by the way, was rather bare, so hence the tree and the plants tucked around that. Then next to the garage, we have a large tent. There's my player home for now. A little bed tucked in the corner. I did some nice finagling with that burner in the corner there, the stove, to make it look like it's actually lit. Which is a bit of a pity it's not, really. Let's swing back out. So we've got the fireplace in there, and I had to rug glitch the cooking station in to get it over the top of the fireplace, and the little sort of odd angling of it, it was able to make the rug kind of blend into the ground and have it actually sit on the ground rather than look like it's floating, so that came out quite well. A few bits and pieces by my razor grind there, lots of decoration on the wall, break up the otherwise blank surface. Have a little look at the fireplace again before we switch over to the night time. So just drop that flashlight bonfire in, and it really contrasts with the floor that it's sat on, much, much darker. So these stones are the ones that came in the atomic shop a while back, around about the same time as the log cabins, and this is just a load of the smallest type, there's 3 different types, and I just sort of re-angled and mixed up those stones and then piled them up a little bit higher so that they covered the edges of it and it looks much more natural. Quite happy with how that's come out. So, let's head on out and take a look around this place in the evening, because the lighting's come out quite nicely on this. Although I do have to admit, I'm going to take that open sign off, as it's kind of jarring, I think. It looks a little out of place. Everything else, pretty happy with. That just doesn't fit in with the rest of the lighting, so that's going to have to go. So we will wander down towards the gate. See a nice little warming glow. I do much, much prefer that orange, warm kind of look to the place. The more tungsten-coloured glow. It's much, much nicer compared to, you know, the very, very stark white lighting. Unless you're doing a hospital build or something like that, which I've got plans to do eventually, one day. And I'll probably use it for something like that. Lots and lots of farm type stuff, a homestead vibe. Should probably have done something like this a couple of months ago for the camp challenge thing that Bethesda were running, but there we go. Even the green light from the vendor doesn't look too obnoxious in here, which I'm quite happy about. Lots and lots of light around here. Use the oil lampposts and the cage lights as well, just to give that nice warming glow. It's not too overwhelming from the outside either, it's quite good. See, the light in the greenhouse basically fits in with it as well. It's a little paler, but it's not too bad. The mute fruits are harvestable, by the way, if you're wondering, so got a little supply of those should I need them, as well as the crops I've planted. Added a couple of bits of extra stuff to the vendor here as well, but some of that stuff is already there as well, so it's a bit awkward to get that to drop onto that bit of the foundation, but it worked. I do like this little corner. There's not a lot going on here apart from the weapons workbench, but it's nice to be able to use that tiny little bit of space for something, so I'm quite happy about that. Yeah, usual setup there. The decon arch, make sure it's on a switch so it doesn't have to hiss at me all the time. So my shelter is tucked in the back corner there as well. Not so much lighting going on under the Vault-Tec tent here. Incidentally, that tent was very, very awkward to get in, the gazebo awning thing, so a little bit of persuasion was required. It'll only just drop in there. Same was true of this big tent here as well, but it went in quite well. So you can see there the light's kind of coming through behind the stove. I've basically got 3 lanterns on the floor behind the tent on the outside, and the light kind of shines through, makes it look like the stove's lit. So quite happy with that. And here we go, nice little campfire. Getting a little darker over by the truck there, but that kind of works, as you won't be spending quite so much time there. And a few little bits and pieces of decoration like the luminous barrels there, the radioactive plants. Just mix things up a little bit, keep it looking interesting. I do like the central focal point of that bonfire as well. Getting that collectron to go in somewhere and not look out of place was kind of hard work, which is... Obviously, it takes up quite a lot of room and a bit awkward to drop in, so tucking it in on the edge there and putting a few bits and pieces around it, done a reasonable job of making it blend in. Quite happy with. So, I do hope you enjoyed that little build. If you did, please do consider dropping subs and likes for me. It is always very, very much appreciated. Social media links, merch store, and channel memberships all available down below the video as well. If you are interested in supporting the channel that way, it massively, massively helps out. I really appreciate it. So, massive thanks to everyone who's done that already. And if you get the chance, do join us for the live streams as well. We're having tons and tons of fun, of course, with Fallout 76 and with Mass Effect 2 as well. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.